Over the last 9 years of driving EVs, I reckon I've done close to 250,000 miles. Lots of long journeys, lots of experience with the charging infrastructure. That's why I have a Tesla, because the charging infrastructure for that is flawless. Whereas with the public charging infrastructure, shall we say, when I get press cars or if I use our other EV, well, that's not quite as good. But even then, I don't have any issues with the charging infrastructure. Very rarely anyway. So how is this? What do I do that's different to, shall we say, other YouTubers that show you how bad the network is? You need to start off with the acceptance that the network is young. It's not going to be developed yet. It's not going to happen overnight. And if you look at the EVs on the road, on the market anyway, bulk of them came out in the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm not sure why people are expecting an instant replacement when getting a full electric vehicle, that you can't do absolutely everything, every scenario that the petrol infrastructure can cope with. The petrol station that's been around many decades with something that's been around for less than one. If you accept that fact, that it's an imperfect network, it's a bit shambolic when it comes to the rollout from various governments, from various councils, from various companies. It could be better and should be better, but it's good enough to do long journeys if you just put a little bit of effort into it. Imagine we have a 200-mile range electric vehicle. So that's real world range. You know you can get 200 miles from a full charge to flat. This here, this squiggly line, is our journey. It's 300 miles and we will probably run out of charge around there. So we have to charge. These blue lines here are the chargers, essentially, that are along the route. So we're not talking going off on a detour or anything. These are along the main roads, the motorways. The numbers next to the blue lines are how many chargers are at each charging site. So we're playing a numbers game on this. So again, we leave with a 100% charge, and I think what a lot of people would do when I go on about this petrol station mentality is go, right, well, if I'm going to run out at roughly there, then I'll charge here, or maybe here. I'll charge at one of these because that's near the end of the tank, as it were. I wait until I nearly empty and then I refill up, which is what you do with the petrol engine. But with an EV, at the moment, again with the network as it is, I would again play the numbers game. I wouldn't stop here and then finish my journey. I would stop here, where there are 12 chargers instead of just 2. Because let's assume they all work. Reliability again is less of an issue than it ever has been. But congestion, queuing for the chargers, that's the big deal at the moment, and until we get an awful lot more, it is going to be for some time. So I pick one with 12 because the chances of them being all in use when I arrive, certainly for more than just a few minutes, is minuscule. Whereas arriving somewhere with 2 chargers, it's odds on really if you go on a busy peak period, you know, bank holidays, weekends, summer holidays as it is now. Now that does mean that you're charging a little bit earlier. So if that's our max range, then you'd probably be at roughly 40% left. So you're just going from 40% to 80-90%, which means you're going to have to charge there as well. So we're charging twice. And you might think, well, hang on a minute, you've gone from charging once to charging twice. That's just not convenient. I'm not interested. But if you went there and were at 10%, you would probably be charging for about 45 minutes. If you arrive here at, let's say, 40%, and you get up to 80-90% or thereabouts, of course, the different cars vary with how long these take, so I'm just using averages here, then you will be here for about 20 minutes, and you will be there for about, well, you know, let's add another bit on, 25 minutes. You're not really changing the amount of time. You're going from 45 minutes in one single stop here to 225. Well, I'll put that at 25 just to change it around a bit, just to make it a little less convenient. 25 minutes, 50 in total, as opposed to 45 for one single charge. This is pretty much guaranteed. This with 10 is pretty much guaranteed that I will charge. Therefore, I can definitely get to my destination without having to queue. You're stopping for far less, twice rather than once, for a longer period. That for me is a much better way of doing it. And if you can't charge at your destination, then because you've essentially filled up here, you can drive there and then probably back all the way here again before you need to get home. Or you could just stop here for 10 minutes and then another 25. You only need enough to get to your destination, is what I'm saying. So if we're only doing this 300-mile journey and it's one way, then that 25 minutes is not 25 at all. It's probably, well, you're going to have a little bit of inconvenience. Let's say 10 minutes. This is something I see an awful lot as well. People will charge up to 80, 90%, whatever they do normally, even though they're only 20, 30 miles from home. Assuming you can charge at home, of course. What's the point in doing that? You're just wasting your own time. If you think, well, I need 20% to get home, stop charging at 30 or 35% and then set off. Don't sit there another 10, 15, 20 minutes because you've got enough to get to your destination. Again, it's about playing the numbers. If you're driving in the middle of the night, 3 in the morning, then yeah, you could probably go for the ones where there's only 2 because, well, it's the middle of the night and the chances are they won't be in use. So, just use your own common sense effectively. If you think, well, I only need to add 50% to my journey, do it there. Don't wait until you're nearly empty or you're getting to 30, 20%. Charge when you can, not when you need. Now, this isn't always possible, but I've never had an issue. I've done the North Coast 500 many times, very rural. In fact, we've done the North Coast 500 and then down to Yorkshire, which is nearly 1,000 miles in one day, doing this sort of mentality. We're only at 50%, but the charger's free and I need to stop for something to eat or to go to the toilet. Well, whilst I'm here, I might as well top it back up to 80%, I guess then. I won't have to think about it. I know I'll just go through. You will never get to that point where you sat there steaming because you're having to wait for somebody who's charging at 95% and is nowhere to be seen, or whatever the situation is. Maybe a queue has formed and you don't know what's going on, and because your charge is so low, you can't get to the next one and so forth. Just again, accept that the network isn't ideal right now and you won't have any issues. And in terms of planning this out, in terms of planning this out, then go on something like ZapMap. That's my usual go-to place. So you go to ZapMap's website, just Google ZapMap, you'll find it instantly. You can put your destination in, it uses Google Maps effectively, and it will tell you which chargers are en route. If you're doing this on a regular basis, you will know this after 1 or 2 trips anyway. So if I go down to my parents, I know exactly where to stop because I've done it so many times. I don't stop at the obvious place because, well, at the moment it's got, I think, 2 chargers there. Hopefully in the next 5, 10 years, we will get to the stage where you could just turn up everywhere, certainly the main areas, and there'll be 50 chargers and it won't be a problem. Let's see if that happens. But either way, at the moment, it's, well, let's face it, it's easy to engineer this to make it look really bad to own an EV. Because what I would do is I would drive until I'm nearly empty, go to the bit where there's hardly any chargers, on a busy day especially, and go, oh look, it's terrible, I'm having to queue. And it should be better. But if you accept it isn't, you won't have any problems at all. And to be honest, if you do it right, you won't really have any extra time wasted either. So how can you charge twice and lose no time over charging just once? Because the fact that you're going to have to plug in twice would lose you several minutes, surely. Well, actually no, because you're always charging in the optimum band, if you will, the fastest charging rates with the 2-stop strategy rather than just one. I don't want to go into technical detail here, but I'll simplify it before anybody jumps up and down on me in the comment section. But if I think back to my original Leaf, it took about 30 minutes to go from 20% to 80%. So that's adding 60% to the battery. 30 minutes. Going from 80% to 99%, so let's say 20% added to the battery, that would take about half an hour as well. Because as soon as you get to the higher state of charge, the slower the speed goes. So if you do one big charge, you will end up in those, well, it's charging slower than I thought it would sort of scenarios. Whereas charging at full max speed there and then full max speed there offsets the fact that you have to plug in twice instead of just once. I hope that makes sense. So again, just to reiterate, pick the one that's almost certainly going to be available. A Tesla supercharger, for example, that's open to anybody. I would always pick that over anything else, even if it meant stopping twice instead of once, because I know it will work. And let's face it, the bulk of people that don't pick an electric vehicle because of the long journey syndrome probably only would come across this issue 2-3 times a year. I'm not talking to travelling salesmen here, people that are edge cases. I'm talking about average Joe blogs. For 99p you can become a member and watch this video on Sunday instead of Friday, as well as seeing members only videos that aren't good enough to go on the main channel. Either way, if you want to help the channel out, that's a brilliant way of doing it. Otherwise, comment, like, subscribe. That's what YouTube uses as a metric of success. Any sort of integration from yourselves into the channel pushes the channel on. So if you want to help any YouTube channel, not just my own, just, well, like and put a comment in, things like that. That's why every single video you watch says the same stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.